It can take up to 10 years for people to get their nutrient status back from having a baby, which just goes to show how important that nourishment is at that time and how much of a focus we should be placing on it. We have this electromagnetic field around our hearts, which they've now been studying, and it's really, really interesting. And when your baby or your child is near you, they synchronize with your heartbeat. And this has this super calming effect on their nervous system. How our body responds to stress is very different to how we can take stress in our minds. I think a lot of people who feel like they can handle quite a lot of stress in their lives, their body underneath is feeling all this physiological impact of stress. So we do need to tell the actual body, not just the mind, that we're not stressed. It can really just, help us engage in our day a lot better.
Hello and welcome to Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. I'm Giovanna Fletcher, and this is a special bonus episode brought to you in conjunction with Ancient and Brave. Now, health and wellness is something we talk about a lot on this podcast. It's something which is obviously incredibly important to ourselves as well as the rest of the family. Yet, we've probably all been guilty of doing things, whether that's missing out on sleep or skipping a meal, that we wouldn't dream of letting our kids do. Being a parent is hard, and finding time for wellness can feel like the hardest challenge of all at certain times, especially when you're faced with the all-consuming approach to modern wellness that we see on our social feeds. It can almost make you feel guilty. How are other people finding the time to look after themselves? Is there something I'm doing wrong? That's a little glimpse into my brain. Well, for today's episode, we're going to take a different look at the idea of wellness as we assess how ancient wisdom can help inform simple, effective improvements and empower families of all shapes and sizes to find their own solution for healthy living that works for them. Joining me to discuss all this and more is Jo Woodhurst. Jo has been a practicing nutritional therapist before joining Ancient and Brave as their head of nutrition. Prior to her career in nutrition, Jo for 10 years was an early years educator and has a deep understanding of early years development. Welcome to the podcast, Jo.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
How are you feeling?
Yeah,
You're good?
Great. I'm good. I'm happy. It's the morning. It's the best time of day for me. So, yes, I am ready for our conversation.
Good. I guess the important place to start is for those who don't know, tell me about Ancient and Brave. Who are you? What do you do? How can you help me?
Okay.
All the questions, Jo.
All the questions. We're here to help. So, Ancient and Brave, we are what we call a mission-driven wellness brand. And our name gives it away, really. Yeah. We are on a mission to deliver ancient wisdom and to understand nature and how our ancestral health informs whole body health. So this holistic health perspective. Mm-hmm. And we want to do that by treading as lightly as we can on the planet when we're trying to develop our supplements and formulations. So it's this kind of holistic 360 view of health. We think that we should be looking after the people, but also the planet at the same time. Yeah. And we're on a really, brave mission to do that. It's not always easy. It's not the easy path, but it's the right one for us.
And leaning on what's come before and all the wisdom that's already existing. Like if I think about hypnobirthing, when that first had its massive resurgence sort of 10, 15 years ago, it felt like a really new thing. Mm-hmm. But actually that's been there for generations.
Yeah, exactly.
Hundreds of years that was there. We just forgot about it and something else took over and told us, no, this is how we do it.
Yeah,
whereas this is going back to the roots.
Yeah, and I think often we kind of look at science and how that informs us how we should live our lives and eat and exercise. Yeah. But actually, science is just understanding what we've already empirically known for generations and generations. And we think that we shouldn't dismiss all those ancient practices which have developed and tested plants and different formulations to be able to know and understand them and how they could work with our body. So we're trying really hard to lean on the ancient practice and also bring it into modern life because, we can't always go away and live in a forest and pick berries from trees. Yeah. We have to be able to use it within our day-to-day life. And so we're trying to create these formulations where people can access this ancient wisdom just in every day.
I love this because I feel like nowadays everything is so fast and you're just constantly going. And actually that reminder of even if you can't get in the woods, there are things that can connect you to a very different way of life and possibly, what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
There's so much there. Tell me about you in everyday life away from work. What do you love doing?
So work is really busy at Ancient and Brave. So to counterbalance that, I really love to just lean into the extraordinary ordinary. To quiet down a little bit, I'm a mum of a 3-year-old who's an absolute firework of a human, and she's great, but my days with her and my partner, they're my absolute happy place. So just doing things like walking in the woods, and we live near the sea, so we're on the beach a lot. I like to get out in nature. I love to cook. Food for me is like joy and connection and celebration. And I remember in my 20s, before I trained to be a nutritionist, I had a really funny relationship with food. And I had just this turning point of a moment when I thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to have to eat food 3 times a day at least. And if I'm not enjoying
for
this,
life.
For life, if I'm not enjoying this, or worse, I'm beating myself up about what I'm eating, it's a really sad life.
Yeah.
So I had to change my relationship with food and view it differently and reframe what it actually was. And now I love food. I think it's amazing and brings so much joy to people.
I love this. What are the modern principles of ancient wisdom and that we can apply to our everyday lives?
There are a lot. Actually.
Are there?
Yeah, there are. But if we were going to break it down and make it more simple, I think that's ultimately what ancient wisdom can do for us. It can simplify things for us when the world of wellness seems so complicated and we're giving so many protocols and the right things to do all the time.
Well, and also those trends, right? Because everything
trends.
especially with social media, things come in and then all of a sudden a year later they're like, no, I was so wrong about that.
Totally.
It's now this. And it's so confusing and you constantly feel like you're chasing to catch up.
Yeah.
But it's moving away all the time.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think trends, quick fixes, ancient wisdom doesn't have these things. So when we look at ancient wisdom, there's a few different aspects you can look at. You can look at traditional practices like Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine, and they've kind of mapped out wellness in a really beautiful way where everything in the body is interconnected, your environment is interconnected and how you sort of interact with that. And then the other side of ancient wisdom is looking at our sort of ancestral principles, which is basically how our biology has been wired for millennia. Yeah. So our ancestors, our hunter-gatherers, they have kind of laid the blueprint for how wellness works for us. And if we look at what they used to do and try to apply that to modern life, it kind of all makes sense. Yeah. Suddenly you're like, oh, now I know why fasting seems to work for people.
Right.
Because we didn't have this abundance of food all day and we had these sections of time when we'd eat and when we wouldn't eat. Oh, now I understand why getting morning light works, because I know it resets my circadian rhythm, because that's what our ancestors used to do and be surrounded by. So you can kind of just look at what our ancestors did, and they're called biological norms, how our biology is set based on the environment that we live in. And you can then just apply this to your modern life. So we've tried to simplify it further in Ancient and Brave by looking at different pillars of health.
Right.
And often people focus on nutrition and exercise as health and wellness. But in fact, there's nutrition, which is important, movement, which is how we describe it. We also talk about sleep and rest, which is super important as far as a pillar is concerned. We talk about connection and community. That's always been a part of our health. And we know now if we're not having connection, if we're lonely, it can have a huge impact on our health and wellness.
It's obviously changed a lot over sort of the last decade. So many of us are moving away from where we grew up. Our sense of community isn't the same as it would have been for like our parents' generation or the generations before that.
Yeah, especially for families as well. We always grew up in these environments where we had a big tribe to lean on different people throughout, to learn from different people throughout the tribe. And now we are very sort of nuclear family based. Yeah. And I know for me, I didn't even realise this until I became a mum, and my family live in Yorkshire. They're ages away from me. And suddenly I was like, oh my God, I do really need them. They're really far away. And we do need to lean on people more, and connection and community is part of our health and wellness. I really believe that. Nature is also one of our pillars of health. And by that, I mean being in nature, but also using things from nature like ingredients, light, all these kind of things. The trick is really just to have a little bit of balance in each area, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to look at all of those pillars. But before that, I just wanted to know, how does where you are in life stages affect what you need. Does it have an impact on what you should be doing in terms of mindfulness?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at wellness, it's not sort of static. It's always moving all the time, and it evolves like we evolve. And as we grow and as we change through our life, our nutrition and wellness needs to adapt with it. And that is the trick. It's being adaptable and flexible around what you're doing, and try not to be too regimented in, this is what I eat every day and this is what I've always eaten in my diet. Things change, especially for women. It's beautifully dynamic. And we'll get these changes through sort of our teenage years. Teenagers are so hungry all the time, and that reflects how much change is happening in their body hormonally,
But it is also
mentally.
interesting, because especially for teenage girls, that's the time where they really try to suppress that hunger and fight against it. Because all of a sudden we're very aware of how we look and what we've been told in terms of what we should be. And
Exactly.
And it's a really confusing time.
It's a super confusing time, and not getting the nourishment that you need at that time can have an onward effect throughout the rest of your life then. And not just in the food that you're eating, how you're creating these foundations in your body physically, but mentally as well, laying these different pathways for your brain as to what food means. So it is really important to nourish at that time. You need lots of healthy fats, and that's often a message that we weren't given, especially our generation, where it's this fat-free generation, that we believed that was healthy, when actually now we know fats are so important for our hormonal health. And when you're trying to get your hormones in a rhythm during the teenage years, if you're not feeding the body, then that can have a real effect moving forward. And then throughout your sort of 20s, that's when you're laying down a lot of the foundations for later on in life. So you're laying down your bone density in that year. So again, you need lots of nutrition and minerals and calcium to be able to do this. You need lots of vitamin D exposure, lots of outside time. You also need to be developing like strength training if you can. And that's really important. And then you move on. Later on in life, you might find that stress is a bit of a thing because you've got so much on your plate. So again, your nutrition can change and develop to help you balance your stress a little bit better and manage that better. And then later on in life, it's all about preservation. So protecting your cognitive health and making sure that, you're not falling down and tripping all the time because you've got some strength there still. So at each of these points in life, you can really just subtly have these additions to your nutrition, which can then really help you along the way.
What about your cycle? Should we be thinking about that?
Ultimately, what you need to be focusing on as a very base level is just trying to get some whole foods in your diet as much as possible, trying to cook from scratch if you can as much as possible. And sometimes that's enough for people.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing those things yet, that's where you start. But then when you start to sort of nail that bit and you think, okay, I'm ready for the next step. The next step is then looking at things like your cycle. And that, again, has this beautiful rhythm, which, again, changes as we age.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's understanding, it's knowing yourself, really, and knowing where you are and what your body needs. So in the first half of our cycle, we can tend to have a lot more energy. We can tend to kind of eat quite a bit lighter than we normally would. And then after our ovulation point, we start to really crave more foods. And again, that's because it's so energy heavy, the active actually going through that hormonal change, that you will need more carbohydrates in your diet. And that's okay if you're craving them. Just listen to your body, but maybe give them those really gentle, nutrient-rich carbohydrates like sweet potatoes and oats and all those wonderful fibrous ones. And then moving through your cycle, you'll have some blood loss. So you want to lean on like iron-rich foods like meat or beetroots or those ones that's going to replenish your iron stores. So again, just tracking your cycle and what you need at different points can really have a big impact on how you feel.
That's fascinating. You talked earlier about the pillars, so we're going to tackle the pillars, which I'm very excited about. The first one is sleep, right? And I am absolutely shattered right now because I just have taken on too much. I'm in a bit of a marathon right now. But what practical tips and habits should mothers bear in mind to help manage sleep deprivation? And obviously, I'm so far into this mothering journey now, and I feel like I've been chasing sleep for the last 10 years. Give us the advice, Jo.
I just want to my tip is to hold a new mum really tightly and go, it's going to be okay. And it really is. It's you need to find your own path with sleep. Yeah. And I think there's so much information out there as to how to get your baby to sleep, what they should be doing in terms of sleep. I know for me, I put way too much pressure on myself at the beginning. And I kind of went in there thinking, right, I'm going to get this kid to sleep so I can get my sleep, because I knew how important sleep was. Yeah. We know that it is this really cornerstone of health, that it impacts our immune system and our stress response. It has all these downward benefits when we get some really good sleep. It's when we detoxify and repair our body. So I was like, okay, it's important. Yeah. I need to sleep. She needs to sleep. We're going to nail this. And I did. I threw everything at it. I had
really?
The apps and the books. I put my nutritionist brain at work. I was like, yeah, we're gonna have this, this is going to be great. In modern terms, I had what they would call a bad sleeper, for sure. It didn't work out as I wanted, but that idea that she was a bad sleeper made me feel like a failure. I really did. I was I haven't got this right. Even with all the knowledge that I've gained from this and all the things I've tried and all the techniques, I haven't got this right. There must be something wrong with us. But then I did look at ancient wisdom and I did look at ancestral health, and I then saw that the biological norm for an infant is to be with their mum or be with their caregiver, because that was the best chance of survival. And if they wake up, that's really normal, because they're checking their surroundings, they're checking they're safe. It's a survival mechanism. So there wasn't something wrong with her. I wasn't getting a shushing technique wrong. It was literally the biological norm. And so then I had to figure out, how do I sort of enhance this? How do I make sure that she is getting sleep and I'm getting some sleep? And one of the ways for us was, and she still does this now sometimes, is she just wanted to sleep on me. And I couldn't figure that out, because every time I tried to put her down, she'd wake up and I was like, I'm getting that wrong. I know, literally. Or doing the gentle, and she just would sleep better on me. And then in the end, I just kind of let her do it. And I got sleep and she got sleep. And then again, when I looked at the reason behind this, it's such a beautiful reason. We have this electromagnetic field around our hearts, which they've now been studying. And it's really, really interesting. It's one of the biggest electromagnetic rhythmic field outside the human body. And it stretches for a fair amount of distance outside. And when your baby or your child is near you, they synchronize with your heartbeat. And this has this super, super calming effect on their nervous system, so they can regulate better. And they can also listen to your heartbeat, so that feels like they're inside the womb again. So it's all these really cool ancestral things that have been developed within babies to help them get to sleep. And part of it is being around this amazing electromagnetic field that your heart's giving out. So if your kid likes a cuddle, that might be why. And suddenly I was like, okay, I feel okay with doing this now. I don't feel like I'm a failure anymore. I'm going to cuddle her until she gets to sleep. And now we do get some sleep. But then again, my friends, some of them cannot sleep with their children in bed with them, and that's absolutely fine. And they found a way where they sleep best when their children are in their room and they're in their room and everybody gets good sleep. And ultimately, that's the most important thing. So I think the important factor is the sleep bit. So how you get there, I think you can find your own way that you're comfortable with, let go of the guilt and the expectations. And then I would look at creating an environment for sleep. So when we're looking at ancestral health, think cave. Right? Oh. We grew up, we kind of evolved in caves. So you want it to be dark and cold. Our core temperature needs to drop for us to sleep properly. So that's all this hormonal cascade going on. So it's another reason why when you have a hot bath and then you get into bed, you fall asleep, because it all your heat goes to extremities and helps you cool down inside. So having a cool room is a really great thing to do. That's what we've evolved to expect before sleep. Making sure it's dark, so putting away your phones, giving yourself some time away from artificial light can be a real game changer. And I know when you're up breastfeeding up and down in the night, it can be so tempting to get your phone out just to see what's going on and to not feel so alone sometimes. If you can try to at least dim your phone so it's got that orange glow rather than the blue light.
Or have a podcast ready to listen to.
Have a podcast.
Maybe that it's not like a sudden bright light, you're not scrolling. Something to listen to rather than look at.
Exactly. You don't want that stimulation, because that instantly sends a message to your body that it's time to wake up. So that can be a real game changer. And then trying to get some daylight during the day, especially in the morning, it sets your circadian rhythm, which then sets this lovely rhythm to get your body ready for sleep in the night. So just telling your body and your baby when it's morning and when it's night, and using some real cues for that, like light or food, can be a really great way to get ready for sleep.
Let's talk about diet and nutrition, because obviously everything goes back to what we put into our bodies. But what does ancient wisdom tell us about our diets?
So when we're looking at ancient practices, it's all about utilising what's around us. It's about variety. And I think sometimes we can forget that in our day-to-day life.
Well, especially now if you go to a supermarket and there's the same foods that are there all year round. Like we're not thinking seasonally, we're not thinking locally what's there, and because that surely must be some of a clue of what we should be eating if it can grow.
Yeah, totally. And there's different compounds within all these plants especially, which we need to utilise during different times of the year. So it's a really, really clever mechanism that we've evolved with. And so eating seasonally is definitely within that ancient practice, and trying to see what's around you and listening into what your body needs. Your body changes in different seasons. You'll need different nutrients in different seasons. During the summer, you'll need lighter food with more hydration. So that's why things like watermelon and tomatoes are in abundance at that time of year. And in winter, we need to sort of lay down some nourishment and nutrients for the winter months to protect us and boost our immune system. So then we'd be looking at things like all the root vegetables, which can be really rich in vitamin A and beta carotene. And it's really, really clever how the world and we have evolved with it to provide what we need at different times. So seasonality is really important. Eating, just again, if you can, eat whole foods as much as possible. That is going to give you such variety of nutrients. Every single vegetable or fruit or meat has this whole array of different nutrients that we need, and plant chemicals in plants that we need and we can utilise in different ways, which you just don't get in ultra-processed foods. So it's just trying to get that balance right. And I'm not there to demonise ultra-processed foods or processed foods. I think they're a problem. But I do think there's room in moderation for some of it. But I think if you have your focus on whole foods as much as possible, that can be such a game changer. And utilising the kitchen pharmacy, that has been something that has been there for generations.
Tell me more.
So the kitchen pharmacy, you'll know about it already. It'll be innate within you, and you'll probably know some classic remedies like lemon, ginger and honey when you've got a cold, right? Or maybe prunes for constipation, or lavender oil to help you sleep. These are all based on plants and therapeutic components in plants that have been there and passed down for generations. And often now we hear about, granny's recipes and kind of go, oh, my granny used to always have that. And now we're understanding why they're so potent and why they work so well. So leaning into herbs and spices and knowing how to use them can be really, really amazing, because they're there in your cupboard already. And you have this whole toolkit in your kitchen then that you can always lean on in different times, whether it's for immune health or whether you're feeling tired and you think, I need something to pep me up. Understanding how food can help you can be a real, really good tool.
I guess linking that back to sleep, how can what we eat impact our sleep?
A lot. And I think it's actually one of those underutilised sort of aspects of sleep.
Really?
Yeah. So we need certain nutrients to be able to even set off this cascade for sleep. Things like iron are really important for our nervous system. So if we've got inadequate levels of iron in our body, that can impact our sleep. Minerals like magnesium are very soothing for the body, so it can help us relax. Again, if we don't have enough magnesium, we can struggle with that part. Zinc, another really important mineral that can help us with deeper sleep, and we can have more interrupted sleep if we don't have enough of that. So there are certain nutrients that we need to always making sure that we're topping up during the day, which can have an impact on our sleep in the evening. With things like food, making sure you're getting really good nourishment during the day, enough protein. Carbohydrates are actually really, they can really chill us out in the evening. And low-carb diets have become a bit of a fad at the moment, a bit of a trend. There's definitely some really cool science about them and benefits for some people. But if you're on too low carb diet, it can really interrupt your sleep in the night. So just by having some gentle carbs in the evening, like a sweet potato or rice or something, it can really help some people get better night's sleep. Balancing your blood sugar across the day as well, that's a really impactful for sleep. If you've got unbalanced blood sugar, so you're going on this roller coaster where you're having a spike in your blood sugar, then it's dipping and then it's spiking again. That will happen in the night as well, and that might wake you up at night. So just trying to have some nice balanced blood sugar. And the way we do that is by making sure we have protein at every meal, having lots of fibre, which slows sugar down, having some healthy fats in there. That can really help to set you up for a really good night's sleep as well.
Yeah. Should there be a cut-off in terms of when we stop eating? And there was a massive, I guess it is a trend of the 8-16, of eating within those 8-hour windows and then not eating for the 16. Is there anything in that in terms of being able to then not have the spike when you're sleeping?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely good for giving your digestive system a rest when you sleep, because it's actually very active. When it's digesting, it has a lot of work to do. Yeah. A lot of energy goes towards it as well. And in the morning, we should be hungry. Being hungry in the morning is a really good sign, and we shouldn't be worried about that. Okay. And in fact, if people aren't hungry in the morning, I'm more concerned. Okay. Because that's a sign for me that something's a little bit out of balance. So I would definitely have that break over the evening, preferably 12 hours. That can be a really, really great reset time for the gut, for your blood sugars. Some people benefit from pushing a bit further with that. Yeah. But I would say, from experience that I've seen in clients, most women do struggle a little bit with that, and they probably shouldn't be pushing it too hard with fasting.
Well, and if they're struggling with it, then that means it's just not right for them.
And it's the stress level. It's a stress on the body, right? So if you're already stressed, if you're already sleep deprived, adding another stressor on the body, even if it's a good stressor in a way, can just tip you over the edge a little bit.
Yeah, so that makes total sense.
Being careful.
Can our ability to exercise, both in terms of prepping and refueling, be linked back to nutrition? You know, if I think about morning runs, so many people I know, like my dad will have a quick espresso and then be out the door. Other people will have a bowl of oats and then be out the door. You know, how is that all linked? And is it an individual thing, or is there kind of a way that maybe is better, or something that we should be doing?
Yeah, I think it is quite individual, and everything in nutrition is, and as it should be. It should be personalised and depends on you and your physiology, and also what you're aiming for and what your goals might be. That would kind of adjust how we might change our nutrition. For the most part, lots of people do quite well with having something before they work out, and even if that is an espresso, because that is still some kind of nutrient that you're using. Yeah, exactly. You're utilising. I definitely have a pre-workout ritual, which is a coffee with some MCT oil, so got those healthy fats in there, but I find that really dials in my brain, helps me with endurance. And I also make sure I put some collagen in there, because I've got the protein then. And it's really good to have a bit of protein in before you work out, because then when you stop working out, your body can use that protein straight away. It's not having to wait for the next meal to rebuild those muscle tissues. So having something small before. Also, if you do sort of struggle to get to the end of a workout, then having something in before, which is a bit carby, can just help you mentally feel like you can achieve it. So I think there's nothing better than getting to the end of the workout going, I absolutely nailed that. I want to do that again, like next week. Because if you're going to do it again and repeat it, there's that dominoes falling in the right direction. You're going to get all those benefits. But if you're depleted and you felt drained afterwards, you're probably less likely to repeat it.
Now, this might sound a bit obvious, but I don't think it's something we focus on enough. Why is nourishing a mother so important? Whether that's post-birth or being a busy mum, like, why is it so important that as a mum we're actually giving food, giving nutrition to ourselves, as well as just worrying about what our kids are eating?
Yeah, for sure. And we do that, and it's very tempting, right, to forget yourself during
the amount of times,
motherhood.
I'm on the school run and I've gone, I've fed everyone, including all the pets, but not myself this morning.
Yeah, and it is. It's really easily done. It's something we have to be quite strict with ourselves on, I think. And there's a few bits to unpack there. So from when you're a new mum, often while you're pregnant, you take nutrition really seriously.
Yeah.
I think most mums will really try their best to get as much nutrient-dense food in, really try to think about what they're putting in their body. And then once you have your baby, that can sometimes fall by the wayside. Yeah. And that's nobody's fault. It's really difficult.
Well, it's also because there's so much guidance on what you should and shouldn't be eating in pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there's nothing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are always quite surprised to learn that our nutrient needs are higher after we've had had a baby than during pregnancy. And that's wild to me because you've grown a whole human in you. But yet you need more nutrients in that postnatal, postpartum time. And that's because you're repairing as well. You've got nutrient depletion because a lot of your nutrients have gone to the baby. And if you're breastfeeding, that sort of ramps up even further.
Yeah.
It can take up to 10 years for people to get their nutrient status back from having a baby, which again, it just goes to show how important that nourishment is at that time and how much of a focus we should be placing on it. So you need lots of healthy fats because you're going to create this nice fatty milk, which is going to then help your baby grow and develop this brain health that they really need. Fats as well are really important for our mental health as well. It's really neuroprotective, helps our mood, which can often take a dip in that postnatal period. And that's not always due to nutrition. There's lots of different reasons why that happens, but we need to be able to support the body as much as we can during that stage. And then it helps with repair, right? Your body has been through birth, however it's been through birth. It needs to go through a repair stage. So you need lots of protein for that. So you can rebuild your collagen levels and you can really sort of help your body reshape again because it goes into a different shape again. And then you also just need to be protecting your gut health as well because that can take a little bit of an impact as well during that time. Your hormones change. There's so many reasons that you need good nutrition during that time.
And what about then on the other side of that, as a busy mum who's now trying to juggle life with children, life with work, and just general mother load? You know, what would you offer in terms of advice for that person?
Yeah, it's so tricky. And, you know, even with my nutritionist hat on, I find that it's just so challenging to always be feeding the family and making sure that they're okay and also feeding myself and you know, guilty. Sometimes I'm the last one to think about myself. But often I try to think of us as a group. And I think that's really important because children soak up so much of what they see and so much of what their parents are modelling to them. And if you're not modelling looking after yourself, that's a really big lesson for them. And they'll continue that lesson. So if they see you nourishing yourself and prioritising food and making sure that you're trying foods in front of them, you know, so often we sit children down and have a separate meal from them. And sometimes we just practically have to do that, and that's okay. But as often as we can, eating as a group so they can see that you try different foods and that you put different things on your plate, that's a really strong message about how we interact with food and how we use food as well. So it has this ripple effect. Not only is it supporting you physically and mentally, but it has this ripple effect through your family, through your community. If you're nourishing yourself and prioritising that, it's a huge big lesson for the people.
Absolutely. Let's talk about movement. We used to talk a lot about exercise, but now the word is movement. Why has there been that change to calling it movement and thinking about it in a different way?
I really love the reframe, actually. And I think exercise can kind of bring up these images of structured gym sessions and, you know, fitness classes, which absolutely have a place. And I love my time when I get to go to a class, and that's my time.
But is that when I get to go?
When I get to go, exactly that. And it can be really hard to feel like you're doing that consistently. So movement also helps you think about all the things you're doing across the day. And I tell you, as a mum of a 3-year-old, I move. And it's not a structured class, but I am wrangling a toddler in the morning, trying to get her dressed for nursery, or I'm in a park, or I'm crawling along the floor pretending to be a bear. I'm moving all the time, or cleaning and getting the things out the dishwasher. And I think we forget that this all counts.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because if I think about, I move all day long, right? But if I'm in a month where I'm going to the gym every other day, I feel stronger having done that compared to moving at home. You know what I mean? I feel, and I don't know whether that's because I'm just on my feet all day, and there's a different energy towards it. Whereas if I start going, I'm doing the washing machine, I'm going to do a few squats while I'm doing this. Suddenly it's different.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's putting that intention on the movement, and ultimately a body likes challenge, right? It's going to need that challenge throughout the day. So it is built to move, and it wants to keep moving in very different ways, and that can be just by parenting or doing the chores or making sure that you're not sitting down all the day. But then that aspect of challenge is really important for our cardiovascular health, for our mental health as well, to be able to show us that we can do hard things. That's also an important factor. So making sure you're doing a little bit of both can be really, really great. Not always easy, but if you're only getting to do this part where you're moving functionally and across the day, that can be okay. And I think it's not to lose sight that you're not doing anything or feel guilty that you haven't got this perfect workout out. A really nice way I've heard people speak about it is having movement snacks, which for somebody who likes a snack, is really exciting for me. But if you plan in maybe every 30 minutes, just maybe have a timer on, just to do something that's going to move your body so you're just not static all the time in the same movement at your desk all the time. Just those little things can
There
add
are
up
loads of
across
studies
the day.
around that as well,
There
right?
are,
Kind of
yeah.
like give it intense for this amount of time, break away, and actually it's a much more productive way of working.
Totally.
Anyway.
There's this really cool study where they looked at people moving for an extra 11 minutes, that's it, past the age of 40, and it extended their life expectancy for another 2 years. It was really, and that's just 11 minutes a day extra.
Yeah.
And you can easily do that. You can put that, next to a coffee break and just do 10 squats while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. It's easy. But then if you extended that to an hour each day, then it extended your life expectancy even more, up to 4 to 5 years. So it does have a huge impact when we move our body, and how intentionally we do it does have a huge impact.
Yeah, that's incredible. And what sort of habits should we be looking to build into our lives in terms of our family as well? Because obviously if we're doing it, they're doing it too.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice thing. And I think, again, a good model of showing children that it's really important to move your body and it's really fun to move your body can just be, a really great tool for them. I think inconveniencing yourself can be really helpful. I think we're living in a bit of a comfort crisis at the moment, and we've made the world really comfortable for us, which can be really nice. And, I wouldn't want to go back to living in a cave for sure. But I think we've kind of swung the pendulum a bit too far in one direction, and everything is just a little bit too easy. So we need to be able to inconvenience ourselves sometimes. So just simply taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
Yeah.
Doing those little
Walking to the
acts.
train station.
Yeah, exactly. Or parking your car 10 minutes away and doing a bit of a walk.
Yeah.
All those little acts can really add up. And I think just involving your children as much as possible in movement, showing them how fun it can be.
If you think about ancient times when cavemen or whoever came after that was kind of, they were having to be functional in a way that was for survival. Whereas so many people now walking around with these massive muscles that they can't do anything with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I think we need to take away sort of, the aspect of aesthetics only as part of exercise, because there's so many more benefits to exercise than that. And see it as this really amazing, beautiful tool that can help us just access the world in different ways. So when we're feeling well, when we've got good energy, we can, it shouldn't be the only thing that we do in life, shouldn't be wellness. We should be using wellness to help us enjoy life and see the joys and do things that we really love doing.
Yeah, absolutely. On mindfulness, let's go on to this next pillar. Mindfulness in the modern world, I assume, would it be slightly at odds with ancient wisdom?
Not necessarily at odds, because I think at the core of mindfulness is just being present, right?
Yeah.
So I think we can just take that practice to be present in the moment. And that's what mindfulness teaches us. It's not necessarily reserved for just a meditation session, right? And although meditation can be amazing and it can give you that sort of time to yourself, but it's exercising that muscle of attention. So I think as a parent, you become more present than ever, really, and your child can be a great teacher to show you like the small things that they're noticing in the world. So I think if you can just practice being present in the moment, I think as adults, our attention is pulled in so many different directions all the time. We're thinking of our to-do list, thinking of how to solve a problem.
And sometimes if we're not thinking about those things, we can feel guilty for not thinking about those things.
For sure, because there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And our brains can just go in overdrive, and you'll be making a cup of tea and you won't even be paying attention about the tea that you're making. You'll be thinking of some other things.
Well, and you'll be drinking that tea and you'll look in your cup and be like, where
did it go? Yeah,
I wasn't taking in that
I
moment.
wasn't present. So I think just practicing that moment of being present and just exercising that can really have a really amazing effect on your nervous system, on how your brain health works as well. So I think it feels like ancient wisdom would tell us to sit on top of a mountain cross-legged and do a meditation for hours, but actually we can apply that to the modern day and just take small little bite-sized chunks of time. We call them daily rituals at Ancient and Brave, where whatever you're doing, if it's you're making your cacao or you're making your tea, it's just taking a moment for yourself, just having a few deep breaths, because it can just have such a massive impact from the day onwards.
Yeah, I feel like I'd like to go to your office. I'm having my
We're all just stirring.
But I guess the thing is with mindfulness as well, you have to be in the right headspace for it.
I know, and it can feel like you've got many things to tick off on your to-do list.
Is that when we need to stop and do it more than ever?
I think so. I know. I'm sorry. But it can. And sometimes when you feel so overwhelmed and overloaded, you're not functioning at a really good state. So if you can just bring your body back down. If you remember, when we're in fight and flight mode, which is when we're in that stress response is really high, our bodies are primed for certain things. And sometimes it can be really fast thinking. It can do some really cool stuff, but often we're not in the same mindset as we can do when we sort of regulate. We bring back to rest and digest mode, and our bodies can work optimally during that time. So it might feel like you need to be going at all the clackers and you can think, I've not got time for this mindfulness stuff. But if you do take a moment, you can just work through the problem or work through the to-do list in a lot more sort of, I don't even want to say controlled, but methodical way. And it can enhance what you're doing a lot better.
Yeah, I like the way you were saying about linking it to something. So if you every day, you know that you're going to make yourself a cup of coffee.
Right.
Linking it to that minute.
Yeah.
Even that it might take you to
exactly
kettle boil.
Exactly. I think it takes 8 deep breaths to get your body from that fight and flight response to that rest and digest mode. So that's not a lot of breaths. You can
is it?
Yeah. So and it's you're trying to send the message to your body, I am safe. How our body responds to stress is very different to how we can take stress in our minds. I think a lot of people who might kind of feel like they can handle quite a lot of stress in their lives. They'll go, oh, I'm fine, I can keep going. But their body underneath is feeling all this physiological impact of stress. So we do need to tell the actual body, not just the mind, that we're not stressed. We need to send those messages through deep breaths, through putting our shoulders back, through sort of relaxing the body a little bit. And it can really just, help us engage in our day a lot better.
I love this a lot. I really love that. So lastly, we have nature as one of the pillars. I love nature. I love being outside. And I think I've always realised that with my 3, things can get quite, chaotic. But actually, as soon as we go shoes on outside, it's a different vibe. But that actually works for us as humans as well.
Absolutely. Well, our DNA is wired to be outside. It's literally telling us to be outside and to utilise nature and all the wonderful things that it gives to us. And I saw this really lovely quote once which said, my wild child is less wild in the wild. Oh, it's so true. It couldn't be more true. And there's certain reasons for that. So the environment in nature, it presents all these different stimuli for us, and it's a very sensory experience. So if we think about what we're looking at in the environment, we have all these beautiful patterns called fractals, and nature presents all these patterns in small things and big things, but these are repeated patterns all the time that send a message to our body to help calm our nervous system, which is so clever. It's why you can look at a picture of nature and even be like, oh, that's nice. So we're surrounded by these fractals, which we're not even maybe taking in at the time. We're not realising this is happening to us, but it can be things in like leaf patterns or tree patterns or cloud formations. And then the next sensory experience is through our smell. So plants, especially trees, give off these really cool chemicals called phytoncides. And these phytoncides are basically aromatic smells.
Right.
And again, it can regulate the nervous system.
Are there certain trees that give off better?
Yeah, so I think like pine trees have really kind of significant phytoncides.
Yeah.
You can almost smell them.
I wonder if that's also linked to your memory of Christmas.
That
happy memory
definitely.
That makes you go,
yeah, you're so true, actually. Having one in your home.
Yeah.
But yes, most trees will do it. So, and when you go into a forest after it's been raining, you can smell all those beautiful smells. They're all having an impact on our nervous system, on our immune system as well. They're really good for our immunity and our respiratory health, which for children, for growing children, that's really, really important. And then if you can get really down with nature, you might want to take your shoes off. Maybe not in the middle of winter, although it can be a really good thing because our ancestors used to always have their feet on the ground.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have shoes on. And even if they did have shoes, when they were developed, they were kind of like these leather shoes which can conduct electricity, and the earth gives off this electromagnetic field that we can use in our bodies as well, and we can get that through our feet if we get our feet on the ground. So any opportunity you have when you're outside, if you can get your feet on the ground, that's another level.
Is there certain types of grounds that are better?
Well, as natural as you can. So, and also kind of wet ones, which sounds a bit strange, but like the beach, because the water can help conduct that electromagnetic energy as well. So it can be really, really amazing to rebalance the body. It's been studied in things like reducing inflammation and these whole huge impacts that it can have. So it's this beautiful sensory experience we have. And for kids, getting their hands in the dirt, getting their microbiome really, really robust because they're surrounded by all these bacteria can also just add another layer of benefit.
What about people that live in cities? Because obviously how we live is so different compared to ancient times. So if someone lives in the city, are there ways that they can connect with nature, that doesn't mean them just moving?
I know. Yes, there are always ways, I think. And I think ideally trying to have long stretches in nature when you can at weekends or when you're not at work can be really, really beneficial. But you can have those mindful moments with nature around you, even if you just look up at the sky, right, at night and you see the stars or the moon, you can connect to lunar cycles or just cloud formation. It can have that impact on you. I would get some plant babies for your home, just tend to those inside, because that can have a really good benefit for oxygen levels and supporting that nature development that you need. And then using food and using plants from nature in your cooking and making teas and all, leaning on all the ingredients from nature is another way to connect with it.
Yeah. Jo, I have absolutely loved this chat.
I'm so glad.
Let's do the 3 sentences that we always do on the episode.
Okay, great.
So, being a mum means?
Leaning into the extraordinary ordinary.
Since having a child, I
have gained so much more than I expected to.
And I'm happy when
I'm with my humans, which are my Lyra and my Fred.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Also, a massive big thank you to Ancient and Brave for partnering with us on this episode today. I hope you've learnt something today that you'll take away and apply into your own life. For me, I feel like I've learnt so much. I feel like it's been amazing to sit down and chat, amazing to think about the simplicity that exists in our lives if we lean into it. And I've absolutely loved that. And, being Italian and having a nonna that grew up in the mountains, that definitely speaks to me. So thank you. And if you would like to find out more about how Ancient and Brave can help you hit your wellness goals, then just head over to ancientandbrave.earth. Thank you and goodbye.